Now that is more like it. That's more like it, Mr. Wayne. Here we are on a designated British one nice day of the year. We get one a year, and here we are, and it happens to fall on a Sunday, so it's absolutely packed. We have a beach probably just about 5 minutes from here. It's absolutely rammed. Heaving, again, this is British slang. Heaving means very, very busy. Rammed means very, very busy. And it's not for me, really. I mean, I love humanity, but I love humanity from a distance, and I kind of prefer this. Space, peace, stillness. Nothing wrong with people. I love people. But in crowds, I find they just, for me, get a bit much. The re-feeling exercise. I wanted to give you this meditative practice, this meditative exercise that you can do anywhere, at any time. And it's intended as a supplementary practice. So this isn't something that you would just sort of mainline and you would only do this one thing. This is a practice that you would do alongside your other practices, whatever that is in the spiritual realm, whatever that is in terms of your meditative practice, your religious practice. And this works alongside all of that. It doesn't matter what your background or your belief is or what you're practicing currently. This is the re-feeling exercise, and it's something that I came up with for my own use that I've found a huge amount of benefit from. And the purpose of this, the point of this exercise is, if you've been doing a lot of meditative practice and you've been on a spiritual journey and you are perhaps feeling some of the benefits of feeling more at peace and feeling calmer. Maybe you're even further down the line in terms of the awakening, and you're actually coming to some state of, I get this, I'm dropping away the ego. There is a sense of being that pervades more, and I'm not acting so much from the individual personality as such, and coming to that space of understanding that what you are essentially is not just this body-mind, but the consciousness in which this body-mind arises. Perhaps you've come into that understanding and awareness. You're feeling some of the peace, but sometimes it feels a bit flat. And I wonder if anyone feels this or has felt this. Please let me know in the comments if you've experienced this, because I certainly have, where, whoa, it's such a massive relief that anxiety has gone, and I don't feel so frantic, and the very heavy negative feelings have also gone. So I don't feel depressed, and I don't feel anxious, and I feel lighter, and I would say, yes, I feel happier, but I don't feel filled with joy. I don't feel filled with peace. No, you do feel filled with peace. You don't feel filled with bliss. So you're not quite getting that joy. You know, you sometimes hear about the joy, the bliss of being, that ecstatic feeling. And you might feel a little bit shortchanged. You might feel a little bit like, well, you know, when does that bit happen? Because you can go for a very long period of time in a sort of very flat space. And if that is you, and that is what you're experiencing, that sort of the doldrums being becalmed, it's still very nice. So we want to stay with that and just know that the joy and the bliss of being is something that kind of comes a bit later on. I mean, after all, we're undoing decades and decades of trauma. You might even be undoing past lifetimes of trauma. And so to come to this recognition and understanding, you might not suddenly be up jumping for joy immediately. It might take a little bit of time, because you're undoing a huge amount of this tight cognitive pain. You're undoing the knot of pain, and you can feel it starting to loosen off, but it's not fully loose yet. So if that is you, and that was me for a while, I came up with this exercise that can just lift on the relative level, on the body-mind level. It's nice to feel a sense of joy and bliss and creativity and happiness, and actually experienced happiness. So here it is. I've blathered on enough, okay? I've waffled on enough. So here's what we're going to do. I want you to call to mind now a period of your life in which you felt happy. You frequently experienced happiness and elation of mood. You frequently experienced joy. Now, I know no matter how dark your life has been, and I know, look, just trust me, I know just how dark many people's lives have been and can be. But there is at least one time in your history, it could have even been a single event. It might have just been one party or one festival, one wedding, one something, one holiday. There must have been one time you felt unusually good. It could be way, way back in childhood, just for a short, brief period of time, you just felt happy. The stars just aligned for you at that time. School was going okay, just things were just good. It could even be maybe when you were with someone, and it can be very sad to sort of to bring some things to mind sometimes, because it might have been a time you were with someone and you're no longer with them for whatever reason, or perhaps you were happy in a job and sadly you lost that job, or perhaps you were happy with a certain family situation and now that's kind of broken apart. It doesn't matter. So the first thing that we need to do is actually have some courage and have some confidence to revisit this memory, because we're going to have to break through some grief. We're going to have to break through some nostalgia. Nostalgia can be a very sticky barrier to remembering happier times, because if we're feeling miserable today, it actually hurts to remember a time that you were happy. So we need some courage and confidence, and that is the point of this exercise, which is why I would recommend having some time and space to yourself in order to do this, because it might take a little while just to get the courage and confidence up to really do this. I'm sure you can remember that time now, that as I've been talking about it. What is that time for you? For me, it's probably childhood, around about ages 12 to 13, and I was just in a state of freedom. I just happened to, it's just luck sometimes. I just happened to have the good friends, and I happened to have the stable kind of home life, and school was going okay, and all of a sudden, as I was growing up as well, starting to go from child into adolescence, and all of a sudden this energy and this happiness just started to, I don't know, I just found a sense of happiness and humour. So there's a period of about 1 or 2 months where I would say, yes, that's probably the happiest I've ever been in my life. So that's the time I go to, but for you it might be something completely different. It might be when I've given some examples already, but yeah, it could have been when you were with a certain person, or the first time you met them, that first 2 weeks when you meet someone and you fall in love. Remember that time, the honeymoon time? You might also look back and say that's where everything started to go wrong as well. So, but we're not going to think about that. We're focused more on the feeling, on the felt experience of the emotion itself. So call that to mind right now, that period of time, or that one event, whether it was a party or whatever. And what we're going to do is use our senses. We're going to use our sense memories in order to fully evoke, to re-evoke those feelings. The feelings of joy, happiness, freedom, bliss, elation. So we have to break through some of that grief, break through some of that nostalgia. Look, you are perfectly safe to do this, okay? And if you've been on the spiritual path for a while, you know the drill by now, okay? Feelings arise, even if they're dark feelings, they arise, and we just don't really pay them too much attention. Just don't pay them too much mind. So if those dark feelings arise, let them come up and let them dissolve. Let's remember that time now. How did it feel? What were the feelings during that time? And yes, the sadness, the loss, the grief arises because you wish you could go back to that time. Well, that's what we're doing right now, okay? So don't worry so much about the grief and the loss. Everything's fine, stay with me. What did that time feel like? Really feel it. Now, what were the prevalent scents at that time? Meaning, what could you smell at that time? For me, there was this deodorant Lynx Apollo, it was called. And I used to wear this Versace blue jeans aftershave, and I doused myself in it, okay? My word, did I lay it on thick. So that's the scent that I remember. But for you, it could be anything. It could be the smell of a certain food. It could be the smell of a certain aftershave or perfume if we're remembering a person. It could just be the scent of a car, a new car, or the car that you used to be in at that time. The scent of a certain room or upholstery, maybe a classroom or a room at university, or the smell of someone's house. Everyone's house has a very particular scent. What was the smell? We're going to use that sense memory to start re-evoking some feelings now. So what could you smell? And really do this. Really remember the smell. And you come to realise, actually, I can do this. I haven't had that scent in a very long time, and yet I can remember it perfectly. Remember the scent now. And we're not trying to make anything happen. We're not trying to force anything to happen. It's just happening. Remember the scent, as if you're smelling it now. Bring it, whatever it was, the food, the aftershave, whatever, bring it close and smell it. Now, what could you hear at the time? At the time you were happy, what was the prevalent pop song at that time? For me, it was Blue Dabba Dee Dabba Die by Eiffel 65, okay? So that's the little earworm that was going on at the time. But for you, it could be a different pop song, could be your favourite song, just a song that reminds you of that time. Or perhaps the sound of certain road noise. Perhaps the sound of a certain something that frequently happened at that time. The sound of a car, the sound of a vehicle, the sound of a person. Something that they used to listen to, or some quirk, maybe they whistled or something, or they hummed or something like that. Just during that time, what was the sound? And now we're going to bring those two things together, the smell and the sound. We're going to remember those two things at the same time. And really bring that to mind now. Really bring those sense memories to mind. So, that's what we can hear and smell at that time. And notice what happens to your mood as that comes up, as we bring that up. Now we're also going to remember the scents on our skin at that time. Perhaps there's a certain type of weather you can remember from that time, or perhaps there's a certain feeling of fabric on your skin at that time. The feeling of fabric of a certain sofa, or some upholstery, or a carpet. Whatever, some sort of touch, something you could sense with your skin at the time, the sense of touch. Now bringing all three of those things together now. What you could smell, what you could hear, what you could touch, and really do this. Remember the senses. We're not trying to make anything happen, just remember the senses. And naturally, what could we see at the time? Perhaps something that we don't see in our daily life these days, we don't see in our daily life at the moment, but something that you could see at that time. What was the landscape like? What did it look like out of the window? Maybe there was a certain painting or picture that somebody had on the wall or in the classroom, and you just remember there's something unusual about that sight. And bring all of these senses together now. What could you smell at the time? What could you hear? What could you touch? And what could you see? And really, really vividly turn the brightness up on these memories. Turn the vividness up on these memories. Now, can you feel the happiness and joy that was evoked by those sense memories? What is the feeling that was evoked by those sense memories? Are we feeling it? Are you starting to remember a feeling that you might not have felt for quite some time? And the nostalgia, the sadness, the grief, the sense of loss, because you're desperately longing to get back there, that's there as well. Okay? That's there as well. But that's okay. That's okay. That's just another appearance in consciousness. It's just another feeling, another emotion as well. We have the joy and the grief side by side. That's fine. The joy's there as well as the grief. We need to remember that. We have this thing called negativity bias, where we always look directly towards the negative feelings, but just allow yourself to have both. And we just ignore now the grief and the loss and the longing to get back there. Instead, just feel the feeling. Now, focusing in on the feeling, and now drop away the sense memories. So just hold the feeling and allow the feeling to pervade through your being. Because feelings are deeper than memories. Memories are brain, but feelings and emotions are heart. So just bring the feeling, the emotion deep into the heart. And we're going to drop away the mind content now. We're not worried about what we could see, what we could touch, what we could hear, what we could smell. Don't really worry so much about that now. If that stays around, that's fine, but just do this now. Just allow that feeling to come into your heart. Now, even if, so you might not be utterly awash with joy and ecstasy and bliss and everything, but I would be willing to bet that you at least had a few little glimmers of something that just, that's strange, I'd forgotten that feeling. I thought I'd lost that feeling. That feeling, I thought I'd lost you to that feeling, but no, it's right there. It's right there. And now that you have a little taste of that feeling, without the content of the mind, we can let the content of the mind disappear and instead just allow yourself to just sit with that feeling of joy, that just whatever it was that was just awoken, the little glimmer that was awoken for you, and just remember, with your whole being, a sense of remembering with your body, with your heart, what the sense of joy. Even if it's just a little brief flash, if it's something you haven't felt in a long time, this is so powerful. Even the briefest glimmer of light will banish darkness. So just allow yourself to remember that feeling. Really do it. Courage and confidence. Let it happen. Let it happen. It's what we came here for, right? It's what we came here for. We need this peace and this joy, this happiness. It's what we came here for. So, let it happen. Let it wake you up. And here's the interesting thing. So, you can feel that now without the sense memory, which then means it stands to reason. It stands to reason that the feeling isn't related to the circumstance. Because you might think, well, I felt that at the time because the situation and circumstance was conducive to that feeling. I was young, or I was around a certain person, or this situation was happening, and so I felt happy. But just doing that exercise just then, we had the same feeling again, despite the fact that the situation and circumstance is now radically different. Therefore, Does it not stand to reason that the feeling is something inherent to you and not something that the external world grants to you? The external world doesn't give this to you, it's something that's in you. Now I'm going to go one further. We're going to bring the Advaita into this. We're going to bring the full spiritual teaching into this. If we drop away all of the content of the mind, you will find that it's this feeling that is revealed, shining underneath. That feeling of joy, freedom, peace, bliss. When the circumstances that you're remembering, that you're recalling to mind, when those circumstances were happening, what happened is the circumstances reminded you of your natural state of being. In a sense, the external world just so happened to align to create this awakened state. And this happens for a number of reasons. You either meet somebody who, because they're resonating on your vibrational level, they just sort of, that's what the feeling of love is. That's what the feeling of love is. Love has nothing to do with a person. Love is a remembering of your inherent nature. When we interpret that as being in love with a certain person, because it's a trick of perception, essentially. Actually, what's happening is that person is reminding you of your wholeness, of your oneness. That's why you feel whole around them, you feel complete around them. But it's a trick of perception. That's not what's actually happening. You feel whole and complete because they're reminding you. In that unity with somebody else, you are reunited with the ground of being. That's why we have yin and yang. You need the two together in order to create the circle. To create the whole, you need the yin and the yang. So maybe you're quite yin and you meet your polar opposite, the yang, and now you feel whole. Yin and yang, you feel whole. You feel the whole. You feel complete. But it's not the person that puts that into you. You are just reminded of what's already there, in that the entire universe is whole and complete already. That's why when you drop away the mind, you get that feeling of total unconditional love everywhere at all times. And that's what was happening in that situation, that whatever it was that you remembered, that you brought to mind, whatever it was that you've recalled, the situation and circumstance around you simply reminded you of your root and ground of being, which is a place of invincible bliss, invincible wholeness and invincible peace, not subject to the constraints and dangers of an individual, temporary, finite self. So that's the exercise right there, is to go to the feeling that you felt. And you can do this as much as you need. And I think if you're on the meditative journey and you're in the meditative process, you're trying to still your mind or get away from your mind. There's this taboo against thoughts and feelings, but sometimes they can be useful. It's just another object to meditate on. As long as you understand the truth of what's happening, as long as you understand the concept of every thought or feeling is just another appearance within consciousness, then thoughts and feelings can be actually useful. And so I thought, as a lot of these, sometimes with meditation and stuff, it can feel a bit flat, or you feel at peace, which is fantastic. And for me, I'm like, well, I'd rather be at peace, than feeling up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. I prefer the equanimity, really. But every now and then, it'd be nice to just have a sense of, that joie de vivre, the joy of life, the joie de vivre. the joy of life, because eventually, after enough practice, it becomes life affirming. And in the early days, I think meditation and Advaita can be life denying, because we're moving away from life, which in order to get away from our suffering. So it's a great thing to do, absolutely, and I would highly recommend it. We should distance ourselves in order to get away from the suffering, but eventually we need to return to it and bring it close. And so that exercise there, and there are many others. I would, if you quite like the idea of what I'm talking about here, of moving close to those feelings and having life affirming meditative practice, I would highly recommend exercise. It's the simplest, most direct way of affirming life. And you might think, oh God, but I don't like exercise. Just something, just anything, whether it's walking, hiking, if you do like running, some kind of cardio. You know, cardio means heart and lungs, you know, breath and blood. What could be more spiritual than breath and blood? That's one of the most life-affirming meditative practice. You get these motorbikes going up and down, absolutely rapid. It's incredible to see, amazing. I'm getting off topic here, but if you're after other life-affirming practices as well, exercise is the best meditative practice you can do. Believe me, I've been through this process. To this day, it's my preferred meditative practice, because it's so direct, it's so visceral, and if you're training hard, you can really feel your body working, you can feel your blood pumping, you feel your muscles working. That brings you fully into a state of presence. But what we're talking about here today is the re-feeling exercise. So try it and let me know what you come up with. Now, it can bring very powerful memories back to mind. And yes, as I say, you're going to have to just wade through a little bit of grief, but hey, look, if we're already feeling flat, we're already feeling low, what's a little bit more grief and loss? Shift those clouds to the side, we go straight ahead, straight forwards, and you'll find shining the bliss, joy, and happiness that is not a fleeting emotion, not a fleeting experience, but the permanent energy that is always there, but often hidden. It is always there, but often hidden. It is always there, but often hidden. And so that exercise just reminds you of what was there already. It's just we get to what's always there through sense memories, which can be a bit like, what? That's not what we do in meditation, is it? In some meditations we do, tantric meditations particularly, towards. So through the sense memories of that happy time, we remind ourselves of what's been there already. And there's sometimes a sense of, how did I forget that? Because I certainly had this. I was like, wow, for 25 years I'd forgotten that feeling of what it's like to have my aftershave, my Versace blue jeans. You know, I thought I was it, you know, going on my paper round with my Versace blue jeans on, still in my school uniform, paper bag on, sun beating down on my skin, feeling sweating, had my headphones in with Blue Dabba Dee Dabba Die playing. I can even tell you what I was eating at the time. I'd go into the shop, I'd get a bottle of Dr. Pepper and probably a double-decker bar or a Mars bar. And they had these things back then called Whisper Bites, which was like a Whisper, Cadbury's Whisper with caramel and biscuit in it. And I remember all those senses. You put all those senses together and it recalls the feeling of that freedom, that joy, that happiness. And then I drop away the memories and suddenly I'm left just with that lovely, wonderful, freeing, happy, joyful feeling. And if I want to go get a bottle of Dr. Pepper and a Whisper Bite, then I will. In fact, that's what I'm going to go and do now. No, they don't do Whisper Bites anymore. I could always get a Whisper and some caramel and some biscuits and kind of make my own. That might be a bit much. That might be a bit mad. I'm trying not to drink the Kool-Aid too much here. Anyway, that's the refill exercise, the rapid refill exercise. Let me know how you get on with it. Let me know how you get on with it. Try it. Just try it. There's nothing to lose, right? Nothing to lose, but everything to gain. Nothing to lose, but everything to remember. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. It's a an absolute pleasure. I bet he feels very free, or she. Free up in the sky. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I hope that's been useful. I hope you're well out there. Take care, be well, and stay present.